Hey Pretty Girl Club, welcome to another video about decentering men. In this video, I want to talk about how going on a decentering men journey really healed a lot of my biggest insecurities. I didn't realize that a lot of the fears that I had around not feeling worthy enough or not feeling loved, I didn't realize that a lot of those fears were actually male-centered. So I came across this article today and they were talking about the top insecurities that women have in relationships. And it says that one of the top insecurities is struggling with the idea of being wanted. So, feeling unwanted in your own relationship, feeling unwanted in the presence of a man that you want. One thing that I've realized is that in every relationship, the woman pretty much loves the man more than the man loves the woman. You can observe this phenomenon by looking at any people in your life who have been married for decades. Look at your own parents and look at the way that your mother behaved towards him, and then look at the way your father behaved towards your mother. Oftentimes, long relationships and long marriages or all of these live-in 50-50 relationships, they only last because the woman likes the man more than the man likes the woman. Oftentimes, when men say that they love you, if you ask him, why do you love me? Or how did you know you were in love with me? Or why are you with me? If you ask him questions like that, he will begin naming how he benefits off of your labor. Whether it's your domestic labor, he likes how you clean the house, he likes how you're a stepmother to his children, he likes how you birthed his kids and how you always have a good attitude, no matter whether he's emotionally available or not. A lot of guys, when they say comments like, oh, I want a woman to be my safe space, I want a woman to be my peace, what he really means is, I want to be in a space where I don't have to try. I want to be in a space where I don't have to put in effort, where I don't have to be emotionally available, where I don't have to buy a bunch of stuff for you. I don't have to take you out. I don't have to treat you special. I just get to be safe. I get to be complacent. I've noticed that men are a lot more likely to become complacent once they get into a relationship because that's the whole purpose. I've noticed that a lot of guys have a pattern of seeking out relations with women so that they can extract something from the woman. Usually he wants to extract sex from you. He wants to extract a form of validation from you. And those things in and of themselves are not bad. It wouldn't be bad if the man was reciprocating, but oftentimes what we see is that these men are not reciprocating. And I know that people are going to try to say, well, you should just choose better men. Have you ever noticed how people say choose better men or choose a high value man, but then they can never give you a solid example of who that high value man is? It's always some ethereal, mythical high value man. Nobody actually names names and says, oh, hey, Steve Harvey is a high value man. So-and-so person is a high value man. By the way, Steve Harvey is not a high value man. I've noticed that a lot of people like to look up to Marjorie Harvey in terms of her being kind of like this hypergamous queen. But Steve Harvey has a history of cheating on all of his previous wives. He does things like cheating on women while they're pregnant. He also wrote that male-centered book about acting like a lady and thinking like a man. So he's literally contributing to helping to brainwash women to think more like men. But I don't want to think like a man. I like the way that I think. I feel like the way that I think has helped me to overcome so many insecurities. And I shouldn't have to brainwash myself with all of these books and basically spend 40 hours a week damn near on a university full-time student schedule of how to please a man in order for me to get and keep a man. But I've noticed that whenever people do the choose better talking point and they say you should choose a high value man, they never tell you who that man actually is. They can never name exact standards of what a high value man is. You know why? Because it doesn't exist. And they know that it doesn't actually exist. They know deep down inside that they are not high value men, the ones who are making these comments to you. Or if it's a woman, maybe she's a married woman making this comment to you, she knows deep down inside that her husband would probably not fit your standard of being a high value man. But I feel like one of the main reasons why a lot of women have an insecurity in their marriages about not feeling wanted is because lots of women throughout history, we have spent our time, our energy, our resources, our money. We've spent all of our money and our free time on learning how to be attractive for a man, learning how to speak in a way that is more feminine, learning conflict resolution skills, learning how to be flirty and like feminine, and then you have to talk to him a certain way, and then you have to make sure that you're good at cooking because the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, which is also false. But anyway, I feel like the reason that a lot of women have the insecurity of not feeling wanted is because men are simply not socialized to value women. A lot of men will devalue women so much so to the point where you could be on a date with this guy, and this guy will literally still choose to ignore you so that he can look at another woman, or comment on how hot that other woman is, or lust after those other women, or flirt with a waitress. So, ever since I started going on my personal decentering men journey, it has helped me to overcome a lot of insecurities because I no longer emotionally attach my self worth to men. I no longer emotionally attach my happiness to men. And it's much easier for me to dump a guy or block a guy or just simply not interact with him at all if I do not feel like I'm being treated special. I've noticed that one of the main things that women say when they want to get into relationships is they want to feel special, which is valid. Like everybody should feel special, everyone should feel seen and heard and loved. And I've noticed that that's the main reason that we tend to get into relationships. But I've noticed that a lot of the love that men give, it is not the same level of love that a woman gives. So I've noticed that when men say that they love a woman, what they really mean is just, generally speaking, he's just kind of emotionally attracted to her or physically attracted to her, or he is attracted to the lifestyle upgrades that she gives him. A lot of men do not show love through sacrifice. I've noticed that one of the main love languages of women is via sacrificing. We sacrifice our bodies so that we can birth this man's children. We are willing to risk our lives so that we can give him a lineage. And especially for the women who marry ugly guys, we are over here volunteering to birth his ugly ass children. Women will sacrifice their careers and they will sacrifice their educational opportunities so that they can become stay-at-home wives and mothers. And for all of the people who are saying that being a stay-at-home wife and mother is easy, that's how I know that you have grown up around 50-50 relationships and that's all you've seen is 50-50. You've never actually witnessed a woman being provided for, which is an even bigger red flag. But anybody around you who is a stay-at-home wife and mother can tell you that she doesn't just sit around all day sipping mimosas. She is cooking, she's cleaning, she's picking up the kids from basketball practice or soccer practice. She's most likely the default parent. She's the one that they come to when they hurt their arm or they hurt their leg. She's the one who's booking all of the appointments and dropping them off at the doctor's office or driving them to the daycares and stuff. So the reason that women tend to have this insecurity of not feeling wanted or not feeling appreciated is because that is often what happens. And this is because men have been socialized to believe that they automatically will get a wife who will love him and kind of like serve him and submit to him, especially if he is from a religious background of any kind. He is taught that he is the leader of the household. Men are taught that they are the spiritual priests of their household. So he's basically the pastor of the household. Men are taught in religious circles that they are the head of the house and that the wife has to submit to them. And oftentimes men have been taught that they are some sort of prize and that they are entitled to having a wife, if not having multiple women. Also, you guys know my take on this. Most men are socialized through video games and porn. They're socialized through video games, Hollywood, and porn. So their beauty standards are going to match Hollywood and pornography's beauty standards. Their sexual standards are going to match pornography. And as far as the lifestyle he lives, it's going to most likely be a very sedentary, recreational lifestyle. So these are the husbands where you come home from work and he's in the room playing video games, or he's playing video games from 5 p.m. all the way until 1 a.m. And you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're trying to work out to stay in shape, you're trying to impress him, and he is still on the video game. And I've noticed that a lot of us women will be confused, like, well, why does he spend all this time on the video game? Well, this is how a lot of these men are raised. A lot of men are raised on their phones, they're raised on video games, and for those of you who are waiting around for your unicorn man who is some multimillionaire business mogul, even those guys, just because the guy is a business mogul, it doesn't mean he's emotionally available. Oftentimes, the higher up you go in wealth, the more emotionally and physically unavailable that man is going to be. And for you to think that you're going to get with some NFL or NBA player and that he's just going to be loyal and faithful and emotionally available and he's just going to be whining and dining you for the rest of your life, that's absolutely delusional. It is literally the standard for those men to cheat. There are literally women who work as sex workers specifically for people who are in the industry, people who are in Hollywood. There are all kinds of trans girls who are like sleeping with these men on the side. So if you think that you can just wait around for a unicorn and that suddenly he's going to sweep you off your feet and your life is going to be perfect, it's not going to happen. Even men themselves have admitted to this. Even men themselves have also admitted that they believe a woman's value goes down as she ages and as she loses her beauty. So this is why I question when a man says that he loves a woman, because oftentimes what he really means is, I love, I'm physically attracted to you, I'm emotionally attracted to you, and I like how my life looks with you in it. That's it. So those things are nice to say, but that does not match. That's nowhere near the level of love that women are giving to these men, or the level of love that women give to their children. Because oftentimes, men's definition of love does not include monogamy and it does not include sacrifice. Have you ever noticed how even when you are married to a guy, if he gets a new job somewhere, guess what? There is no discussion about it. You're moving to wherever he has his new job because he's the head of the household, he's the breadwinner. So you are actually sacrificing your life. You're sacrificing the city that you live in, all of your friends and family who are there. You have to drop all of that so that you can move with this guy to a new city or even a new country. And don't even get me started on the women who have some of the worst relationships, which are religious women and women married to military men, because you're over here moving all over the country or potentially all over the world for this man, and he is still cheating on you. He is dealing with all sorts of mental illnesses and PTSD, because if you look into the military industrial complex in general, the way that they train the people who work for them is they have to psychologically break them down and they have to psychologically abuse them in order to get them to obey the orders. But I noticed that ever since I went on my own decentering men journey, I no longer have that deep rooted fear of being unappreciated, because I am no longer willing to pick up my whole life and to like drop everything that I love for the sake of a man who is very fickle. Men as a gender are very fickle. Humans in general are just very fickle. So one day they love you, they love the city they're living in, they love their job, they love everything about it. And the next day they want to drop everything and move to Africa. So the fact that I decided to go on my own decentering men journey and view men as more of, how do they fit into my life as opposed to how can I bend over backwards to fit into theirs, it really helped me to stop having that mindset of, oh, I have to make all of these sacrifices, otherwise I'm going to lose him. I have to sacrifice what I want. I have to sacrifice my needs. I have to sacrifice my sexual needs so that I can please him in the bedroom. Because that's another thing, is the orgasm gap. A lot of people do not talk enough about this. Most of these marriages, all these women who are out here bragging, I've been married for 15 years, I've been married for 20 years. All you're telling me is that you've been likely not having orgasms for 20 years and you've been with a guy who's probably a porn addict or cheating on you, or you're paying bills and going 50-50 so you can upgrade his lifestyle, and you've been doing that for 20 years. So that's not a flex at all. That lifestyle is not better than mine. I would choose my life over that life any day. But I know that every woman is different and, people have different things that they want. So if you like it, I love it. But I did notice that ever since going on my decentering men journey, men have lost their importance in my life, which has been very empowering, because a man no longer has the power to make me feel like I'm not good enough. So in the past, when I used to be in relationships, let's say a relationship ended, or, I was dating somebody and it didn't work out, I used to have a little bit of sadness because I would feel that feeling of, oh, I'm missing out on the love of my life potentially, or I am missing out on romance. I'm missing out on this happiness that everyone talks about and that all the songs are singing about. I am missing out on that. But now, since going on my decentering men journey, I view it like, no, I dodged a bullet. I am missing out on trauma. All relationships will involve trauma at some point. That's another thing that a lot of married couples do not tell you. They do not tell you the amount of traumas that were required for them to remain married. If you ask your own mother or your own father, how many traumas did you have to endure in order to stay married to dad for 25 years? Oftentimes these women won't be able to even count, because there will be so many different things that they had to endure, or they will be so deep in the way that they lie to themselves to the point where they will then lie to you and say, oh, I haven't had to go through anything in order to stay with your dad. Everything was fine. I'm happy to be with him because I love serving him. I love cooking and cleaning for him. I love letting him go out and cheat because he comes back home to me. But a lot of women who have been in these long marriages and stuff, they have settled for a relationship that has certain areas where it is unfulfilling. So all you have to do is ask that woman, what part of your marriage is unfulfilling? Because there's no such thing as being around a human being and that human being fulfills 100% of your needs 100% of the time. That is psychologically impossible. So all you have to do is ask a married woman, what parts of your marriage have been unfulfilling for you? And oftentimes she will go silent because she doesn't want to answer that, because she knows that if she does answer that, then she's going to expose the fact that, she's in a sexually unfulfilling marriage. She's in a dead bedroom. Her husband looks at porn in the bathroom, or he looks at pornography while he's on his lunch break at work. She doesn't want to tell you that she's been going 50-50 or 60-40 or 70-30 with him. She's paying the majority of the bills. She's the one that's kind of the glue holding the family together. So I noticed that once I started to decenter men and to just center my life around my other desires, and, if a man can get in where he fits in, then that's fine. But most of the time, that's not going to be the case. It has released me from so many what ifs. I noticed that the biggest insecurity that a lot of women have, it's the what if questions that you're asking yourself. What if he cheats when he's on his business trip? What if he is at a strip club when he goes to his friend's bachelor party? What if he is not attracted to me anymore because I'm 45 and I gain weight and I have gray hair? What if he cheats on me while I'm pregnant? What if he is a bad father? What if he emotionally abuses our children? What if he only married me because I'm paying 50% of the bills, and if I were to stop paying 50% of the bills today, he would divorce me? What if he only married me so he could have a consistent sex life? What if he only married me because he wanted a baby making factory and he didn't want to deal with the social stigma of having a baby mama? So he just married me so that he could have a built-in mother and bang maid and a person who is around him for companionship. What if he's only with me so he can have a safe landing while he goes out as this newly confident married man, or this newly confident man who has this hot wife at home, or this hot fiance, this hot girlfriend? What if I'm just the soft landing and kind of his full-time cheerleader who is helping him to finally become the man he wants to be, so he can then go after another girl once I'm all used up? So I've noticed that once I started to decenter men, all of that overwhelming what if, all of those what if questions that used to be triggers when I was in relationships and a marriage and stuff like that, all of those triggers went away because I no longer had to wonder about the what ifs, because I know the answer, because there are so many articles, there are so many stats to back this up. By the way, for those of you who don't know, the majority of subscribers of OnlyFans girls are married men. So the women who have decentered men the most, the sex workers or the girls who are just making all of their bags, the women who have decentered them and who only allow a man into their life if he is spending money on her, those women are actually living better lives than the women who are desperately, kind of jumping through these hoops for these guys. You're hanging out with him all the time. You're like having sex with him all the time for free. He's not even taking you on dates. He's not even investing anything into you. So, ever since going on this decentering men journey, it really helped me to increase my own value, because I started asking myself questions like, how much does my life cost? So, for example, if I am married to a man is like, you're dedicating your life to him, right? So this means that your life is no longer your own. Now your life is ours. It's no longer a me, it's we when you get married. So how much am I willing to essentially sell myself for? Because for the women who say, I only want to be with a guy who has money, it's like, okay, how much am I willing to sacrifice my life for? Does he need to make 100K a year? Does he need to make 500K, 1 million? How much is the rest of my life worth? How much money does a man have to make in order for him to be able to dictate how I live my life and what my future is like? How much money does a man have to make in order for me to be willing to put my future and my life and my sexual health in his hands? And then I started to realize my value is actually priceless. I am priceless. There is no amount of money that a man can have that will cause me to center my life around him anymore. But I've noticed that because we have been socialized as women by romance movies and Disney and Christianity, if you're in the United States, because we've been influenced by those things and we've been influenced by pick me culture, is what I call it. So, like the music we listen to and stuff, we often listen to male centered music where it's like, you're hearing like Chris Brown's singing in your ear and he's talking about like seducing a woman and F around and give her my last name. Meanwhile, in real life, the actual person who's singing that song is nothing like that. And so, since us women have been socialized around fantasies, once I finally gave up the fantasy, it allowed me to have so much more freedom because I didn't have to worry about constantly being disappointed. I didn't have to go through these constant disappointments of, oh, I thought that I was going to have this whirlwind romance and once again, I'm not going to have it. Oh, I thought the sex would be great this time, but oh, guess it's not. I thought that if I divested and switched to dating white guys or dating non-black guys, that it would be a better experience. But nope, there are still plenty of dusties and liars over here too. Oh, I thought that if I got a guy with money, that would be a lot better off. But no, the only thing is he just solved the money problem. Now I have to deal with all of the other non-monetary problems. So, decentering men for me, it really helped me to take back control over my own future because I am not putting my life in the hands of a fickle human being. I'm not putting my life in the hands of a man who, his presence in my life is dependent upon me staying the same weight, me making sure that my boobs and my butt are sitting up on my body correctly, me not having any gray hairs, me never getting pregnant, me being child free, me having this good career or being a high status type of woman that looks good on his arm. So, decentering men, it really helped me to finally have a sense of freedom because I no longer had those questions anymore about worthiness. Am I good enough for him? Is he going to still think I'm good enough for him when I'm in my 60s? Will I still be good enough for him in my 70s? Because one thing I've noticed is that most men will not leave you, they'll just cheat because a lot of men, they benefit so much from relationships, especially marriage. They benefit so much from marriages to the point where it actually does not really help him to get a divorce. It actually helps him more to just stay in the marriage and just cheat on you because most men who are married, they don't want to get a divorce because they don't want to lose half of their wealth. So they're like, no, I'll just keep my wealth. I'll have my cake and eat it too. So I'll keep my wealth. She gets to be my bang maid at home and she gets to raise my kids. And then I can still go out and I'll take off my wedding ring and I'll just act like a single man. Or I'll just go on ashleymadison.com. They have so many cheating websites for men. They have websites where it's like you can just sign up for it. And if you want to get your account deleted from those websites, you can actually pay them to delete your profile off of the account. Did you guys know that cheating is so common that for a couple of $100s, you can actually pay for a private investigator to help you catch your man cheating? That's how common cheating is. It's to the point where there are people where their full-time job is just catching cheaters. You just pay them about $500. They will follow your spouse around and they will take pictures of him with another woman. They even have people who, they have these offices where they can give people lie detector tests and you just pay a couple $100s for this. This is how common men's lying and cheating is. And so ever since I just decided to no longer live my life with the goal of centering it around a man, it took away all of those negative what ifs out of my mind. And it really did allow me to be so much more carefree. And I also noticed this pattern where any woman who says she wants a husband has either never been married or never been divorced. So why is it only the women who have never been married or they've never been divorced? Why are those the only women who say that they want a husband? Of course you want a husband because you have never gone through either the marriage itself, so you're just curious and you see the wedding and the big dress and you see all of the validation you get, or you have never gone through the divorce. You've never had to file a divorce. You are still currently married. And I'm not saying that every single man on this earth is bad, but the exceptions don't make the rule. So haven't you guys noticed how oftentimes the women who are saying, oh, well, you should get married, or I want marriage, or I want a husband, you should want one too. Oftentimes those women are the exceptions, or their husbands, they consider their husband to be the exception. In reality, their husband is probably not the exception. This is why a lot of women refuse to tell unmarried women the struggles that they go through in their marriage. This is why a lot of married women refuse to tell others about the traumas in their marriage. This is also why it's actually very common, even in premarital counseling, they will tell you what happens in your marriage stays in your marriage. So, has anyone else noticed how the only way that a lot of these marriages survive is via isolation? So it's isolating yourself from the in laws, isolating yourself from your family. Oftentimes, the married men are isolating themselves from other men because they don't want their friends and their bros to see all the bad stuff that they're doing. And if he is around his bros doing those bad things, oftentimes the bros will cover for him. But it's like, if this type of relationship can only thrive if the woman becomes a doormat and if I socially isolate myself, why would I volunteer for it? And also, if married people themselves are going around and admitting that marriage is hard or that it's like one of the hardest things they've ever had to do in their lives or that marriage is work, why would I then volunteer to go spend the next 80 years of my life doing that? And also, if you look online, it talks about how a quote unquote healthy relationship is where you argue 2 times a week. Well, I don't want to have to argue 2 times a week just to maintain a relationship for the next 80 years. That's 104 times per year. I don't want to go through 104 arguments every year just to say that I've got a man. 2 times per week of arguing, that's actually 8 times per month. So for all of those girls who are single and having a hot girl summer for 3 months out of the year, all of your friends who are married, while you were having a hot girl summer and not dealing with anybody, those women were going through 24 arguments over that same summer. And this is considered healthy. I don't want to have to argue 24 times this summer just to keep you in my life. If we're arguing that much, clearly there is a fundamental incompatibility. And so another thing that really healed my insecurity when it came to decentering men was I realized that I was not the problem all the time. So I'm not saying that I don't have any flaws or anything or that I've never like made mistakes in relationships, but I used to have this innate feeling of, oh, well, was I not good enough? And this is because other women will say things like, well, if you were his dream girl, then he wouldn't have cheated. If you were his dream girl, then he would have did XYZ. If he wanted to, he would. So he didn't want to do that for you. So that's a you problem. Oh, well, you should have chosen better. So notice how all of those things are constantly pointing at the woman. They're never holding the man accountable for cheating. They're never holding the man accountable for his lies. They're never holding him accountable for his dusty behavior. It's always the woman's fault because she's just not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not sexy enough. You're not young enough. You're not white enough. You're not black enough. So the decentering men journey for me, it has been very healing in terms of helping me to realize that I am enough. A man's lack of character and a man's lack of virtue is not my fault. It's only my fault if I continue to stay with that man or if I continue to center my life around that man who has clearly shown me his lack of virtue. And also, even if you are a woman who has made a mistake and maybe you stayed with a guy after he mistreated you, you still have a chance to change your mind and say, hey, no, from this day forward, I'm no longer tolerating this, so I'm going to dump this guy. So I don't like how there's a lot of shame towards women for failed relationships. Have you guys ever noticed that? Whenever a relationship fails, it's always the woman's fault. Well, you weren't present enough as a wife. Well, you started valuing being a mother over being his wife, and so that's why he went out and cheated. Yep, you should have worn lingerie around the house 24/7. Well, it was your fault for gaining that weight. It's your fault that he's looking at actresses and looking at porn stars and OnlyFans girls. It's because you let yourself go. So that's why he's doing it. And it's like, if a man has that big of a lack of self-control to the point where all it takes is a couple of pounds for him to suddenly go stick his dick in somebody else, all it takes is a couple of gray hairs for him to suddenly want to look at everybody else except for his wife, then I don't want to dedicate my life to that. I don't want to dedicate my loyalty to someone who I know statistically is not going to have that same loyalty to me long term. So it actually really helped me to realize that it was not me that was the inherent problem. It's not that I wasn't good enough. I would say that's the biggest thing that decentering men has taught me is that it's not that I was not good enough. It's not that I wasn't pretty enough, wasn't wholesome enough, because I did all of the things that you were supposed to be doing to attract a quote unquote good man. But I realized that the problem was not myself not being good enough. The problem is the nature of a lot of men and a lot of guys having a lack of virtue, or having a lack of loyalty, having a lack of monogamy, having a lack of emotional intelligence, a lack of emotional availability. And I've also seen women who brag about their husbands and stuff, and usually their main bragging point is that he doesn't cheat on them and doesn't abuse them. Well, guess what? My standards are still higher than that, though. So just because a guy doesn't cheat on me or abuse me, if he is an emotionally unavailable man, he doesn't listen to me, he doesn't value my dreams and goals, he is a bad parent, those are all still deal breakers. So just because you are willing to brag about your husband or your boyfriend or whatever not cheating on you and not abusing you, well, if those are your only two standards, that's fine, you can keep him. But some of us have standards that are so high to the point where we have realized that that man does not exist, or that if he does exist, he's a very unicorn type of man. So instead of me trying to chase a needle in a haystack, trying to waste my life, waste my time swiping on a bunch of dating apps, moving to all of these different cities. Because a lot of people, they try to give you all these quote unquote dating strategies like, oh, well, you just live in the wrong city. Oh, well, you're dating black men. You need to date white men. Oh, but you need to date older men. No, you need to date guys that are younger. You need to be a cougar. So instead of spending my life jumping through hoops, moving to different cities, dating a guy who's older, then trying a younger guy, then trying an ugly guy, then trying a fat guy, then trying a bald guy. Instead of spending all of my energy doing those things, I have allowed myself the freedom to invest in things that I feel are actually fulfilling, things where it actually gives me something back and it gives me the results that I'm looking for immediately. Because a lot of times, women who do end up in these marriages and stuff, or they're with a guy for 30 years, maybe he's their boyfriend or whatever, a lot of times that woman had to sacrifice for so many years to get to the point to have a good marriage. And it's like, if I have to go through 20 years of trauma so that by year 21 you finally became my dream guy, well, that's not a good investment to me. I could have spent those 20 years building my own business, doing my own personal level up journey. I could have been writing books. I could have been like, women are multidimensional human beings. Our whole lives don't have to revolve around getting and keeping a man. Our whole existence doesn't have to revolve around that. And I've noticed that a lot of times in society, they treat women like our whole existence is just to serve a man, is just to be a man's concubine or be a man's wife, or, that's it. And we just have to bear children. No, some of us have other things that actually make us happy besides just a guy. So the decentering men journey for me, it helped me to realize that I actually was living a soft life when I was in my 20s, single, where when I wasn't looking for a guy, wasn't on dating apps, that actually was the soft life. But I've noticed that patriarchal talking points tried to tell me that I was not living that good of a life and that I needed to immediately marry a guy and immediately have children. But if you look at the history of capitalism, oftentimes capitalism is dependent upon women having children. So a lot of people, they try to sell women the idea of romance, and it's all just a pipeline to try to get as many women to have children as possible, because that's what keeps the economy going. We all know that we live in like a very capitalistic society or whatever. So in order to keep capitalism going, and in order to keep people consuming, and in order to have a working class, the people who are working in the factories, the people who are working at the front desk or working for these big box companies, you have to keep on birthing children. So I've noticed that oftentimes people will give women this pipeline. They will initially try to draw you in with the idea of romance, and the brainwashing starts very young. So you start off as a little girl learning about princesses and learning about how what makes her a princess is the fact that there is a prince. And, her mom was a queen, and her mom was only a queen because the dad was a king, and the king is the highest level. So the brainwashing starts very young. Oftentimes, people try to brainwash us with romance because that's the pipeline to get into being male-centered. The more you are obsessed with romance, the more romantic you are, the more male-centered you will become. I'll say that again. The more romantic you are, the more male-centered you will become. Because that's how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to have these feelings of romance so that you ignore the fact that he is jacking off to other women. You ignore the fact that he cheated on you. You ignore the fact that he's emotionally unavailable. You ignore the fact that you're going 50-50 because you still get to be seen out in public with a man. And oftentimes that romance pipeline was created to give men a wife or give men access to women. It's really, in my opinion, it's giving mediocre and subpar men access to women who are far above their league, just in general. Even if she's fat, even if, and it's so funny because a lot of guys, they like to place our value only on like our weight or, our beauty and stuff. But a lot of women, even if that woman is ugly, she could still be giving that man value in other ways. For example, caregiving, raising his children, cooking and cleaning for him, paying 50% of his bills, for God's sakes. So a lot of men, they want to try to brainwash women into believing in the idea of romance because that man knows, okay, if I can just convince her that I have all these romantic feelings towards her, then she's going to finally do what I want. Then she's going to finally do what I say, which is to pay 50% of my bills so that I can retire early, so that I can buy my house, so that I can start my company. I need somebody to be my free employee. Oftentimes, men are not looking for romance. They're looking for an employee. They're looking for a caregiver if he's an old man, especially if he's an old man that has like diabetes or he has some sort of high risk illness or a chronic illness. Oftentimes those men are looking for a caregiver or they're looking for a womb factory. They want a free womb that they can use. So these are the men who they like to choose based on looks because they're like, okay, yeah, I like how her eyes look. I like her skin tone, her hair texture, whatever. So yeah, let me just go ahead and try to convince her via romance to have my babies. And then boom, I get to brag that she's my baby mama. And now my kids have her genes. So, decentering men has really taught me that my value is so much more multifaceted than just the male gaze. I have so much inside of me that is valuable other than just how I look or, what my body shape is and stuff like that. So, decentering men really helped me to see that within myself. And also, at first, I was so male centered that I genuinely did not know that you could have this much fun in life without it totally being focused on a man or totally being focused on trying to get marriage. And by the way, there are a lot of articles that talk about how a lot of women experience post-marriage depression. That's the best phrase I can think of to describe it. I don't know if they have an official phrase for it, but a lot of women, they actually go through depression after they get married because they have spent their whole lives centering their whole existence around getting married. So you were raised as a Christian, you were raised to stay a virgin until marriage, you were raised to not smoke or drink so that you can come off as wholesome to a man, you were raised to dress a certain way so that you're modest and a man thinks you're classy, and then you have to learn all of these dating strategies. Make sure to freestyle and go to the hotel bar and go over here to these fancy zip codes or go to these places that have all the rich men. Oh no, but you also have to divest, so don't date any black men, date only white men or date only Asian men or all these different races of men. So you've spent your whole life strategizing and training yourself into becoming this wife. And then when you finally get married, you start thinking to yourself, wait, this is it? This is actually a very common phenomenon, by the way. A lot of women get married because when you are in a relationship and then when you have the guy propose to you in front of all of his friends and family, and then when you post it on Facebook and Instagram, oftentimes all of those things are a form of validation. What's the first thing you do when you get a date? What's the first thing you do when you fall in love? What's the first thing you do once you get engaged? You call all of your friends and family and tell them, hey, guess what? I got engaged. Oh my gosh, this is the happiest moment of my life. You post your ring on Facebook. You walk around and show everybody your ring and show everybody like how big the diamond is. And then you spend all of these countless hours planning and paying thousands of dollars for the perfect venue and getting the perfect dress and having everybody look at you and tell you how beautiful you are as a bride. And so all of those things are a form of validation. And so oftentimes for the women who do not feel seen, particularly women who maybe they didn't have pretty privilege growing up. Maybe they didn't have anything very special about them that made them stand out. I know that not all women who get married are like this, but I've noticed that the women who felt kind of invisible, whether it was in their careers or just in other areas of life, they finally feel seen because of this relationship. Everybody's finally giving them all of that attention. They're basically famous. Like if you go on to Facebook and look at people who post their wedding rings and stuff, you'll see that they went from being that annoying girl on Facebook that's always posting about politics to suddenly she's got hundreds of likes, she's got thousands of likes, she's got hundreds of comments on her stuff. Everybody's congratulating her. Everybody's saying, oh, your kids are going to be so cute. Oh, your husband is so handsome. Wow, that's so exciting. She's having a bridal shower. Let's say she has a baby after the marriage. She's having a gender reveal, a baby shower. But oftentimes, after all of the hoopla is over, that woman goes right back to being invisible because the wedding is done. Everybody already knows about the engagement, and she goes right back to her everyday life. So all of that work that she put into finally getting that marriage and finally getting the wedding, all of the highs of marriage are pretty much already done before the marriage even begins. You have the highest point of the marriage on the wedding day and then the honeymoon. Those are oftentimes the highest point of the marriage. That's why they call it the honeymoon phase. Have you ever talked about that or thought about that? That's why they call it the honeymoon phase, because they know once this shit is over, it's all downhill. I mean, look at the words that they're even using to describe these types of relationships. They talk about, premarital counseling. Why is it that you don't need pre-relationship counseling? You don't need pre-dating counseling. That's not a thing. They don't market that, but they market premarital counseling primarily to the women, by the way, because they already know, oh, as soon as they tie their lives together, as soon as they tie their finances together, she's going to start having complaints. And so let me try to get her into this premarital counseling so that I can try to do some final brainwashing so that she can be that good submissive wife that she's supposed to be. And then also, I've got a free client for the next 30 years. Have you ever noticed that relationship therapy is the most common amongst married couples? It's because their relationship peaks at the beginning. Their relationship peaked before the marriage. It peaked during the engagement. It peaked during the honeymoon phase, or maybe within the first couple of months of being married. Once all of the excitement is gone, once all of the attention is no longer on that woman and her beautiful wedding dress and stuff, and she realizes that she spent her whole life centering everything around getting married, then she starts to realize, wait, so now what do I have left? What do I have to work for? What is my identity outside of this? And this is why post-marriage depression is actually very common. It's so common to the point where if you go see a therapist, they will actually tell you that this is normal. So it's like, okay, if getting married means I'm centering my life around someone, and then you tell me that it's normal to be depressed afterwards, why would I voluntarily surround my life with something that you've told me is going to be hard? You've told me that marriage is the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life. You've told me that most quote unquote healthy relationships argue at least twice per week, so 104 times per year. And now you're telling me that post-marriage depression is normal? So then why would I volunteer for that? Oh, hey guys, yeah, I want to volunteer to argue 104 times per year and to go 50-50 with somebody else so that he can jack off to porn in peace. Yeah, and then I won't decorate my house the way that I want it to be decorated so that I can say that I got a man, my man, my man, my man. And then I'm going to get depressed about a year into the marriage, but I'm okay with that because that's normal, right? All of us married women are depressed. So much so to the point where there's actually a term for it. It's called the post-wedding blues. So yeah, I'm willing to sign up for that. I'll sign up to have the post-wedding blues. Like, no, I'm not going to waste the next several decades of my life signing up for something that I know that statistically, first of all, there's a 50-50 chance of you getting a divorce. Secondly, women who are divorced or like people who go through divorce, they often end up both losing money or losing wealth. So it's like, no, I could have spent all that time building my wealth on my own, building my mental health, actually going on a healing journey, actually developing skills and talents, as opposed to using all of my mental health and all of my energy towards planning my life around a man. Another thing that Decentering Men has taught me is that a lot of people use marriage and children as one big giant coping mechanism. It's one big giant coping mechanism because they have no other sense of meaning in life. I've noticed a lot of men will do this, and that's why they're desperate for being in the presence of a woman, because he knows that he's a loser without a woman. He knows that he has nothing going for himself. He knows that all he does is he just goes to work, comes and plays video games, jacks off to porn, and goes to bed. So oftentimes people will seek out these marriages and these extravagant, houses and children and stuff because they're hoping that the temporary validation that they receive from their friends and family will fulfill that void that's inside of them. You guys have heard me talk in other episodes about how a lot of men are very emotionally vapid. So that means a lot of them are very emotionally empty, or they don't have a vocabulary to describe their emotions, or maybe they're dealing with mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, PTSD, anger issues, rage issues. They're dealing with all of these mental health issues because they never learned how to cope with them, because men are not socialized to learn emotional intelligence. Little boys, when they're growing up, they're not taught about how to manage their emotions and, how to be considerate, how to be kind and caring and nurturing and self-care. They're not taught those things on the same level as women. And so oftentimes the women who marry these men who are not taught how to care for someone, they'll be in a marriage expecting, oh, he's going to become, he's going to change. He's going to become even more caring and even more nurturing. Because have you ever noticed how whenever women have a transition coming in our lives, like maybe we're about to have a baby or we are going to get married and stuff, oftentimes all of these premarital counseling stuff, parenting books, all of this stuff that is supposed to kind of emotionally prepare you for that next stage in your life, have you ever noticed how those things are marketed to women? So women are more likely to take the time to learn how to manage these new phases in life, while men are not marketed those same things. They're not taught those same things, so it's not as much of a priority. So if you're a woman who has gone so far as centering your life to the point of marrying this man, oftentimes what causes the depression is the women realizing that, oh wait, I spent all of my time and energy in this, and now that I've passed the validation part of it, I don't really like anything else about it. I only liked the wedding part. I only liked the engagement part. I only liked when he bought me the diamond ring. I only liked it when he got me the flowers and the roses. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that it's okay to have desires and standards, but it's very important to decide what you really want and what you are looking for ahead of time, instead of going through the whole marriage and having kids and stuff, and then you end up regretting it. All you have to do is go on Reddit, and there are tens of thousands of people who are regretful parents. They talk about what it's like and stuff. Even if you go on the other groups where they are married and they're like unhappy and stuff, all you have to do is go in there and you will see tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who are experiencing this simultaneously. And for the people who are like, oh, well, the internet is very negative. Okay, but there are more people who are having negative experiences on average than people who are having these positive, happy-go-lucky, perfect experiences. If someone has a quote unquote perfect marriage or a good marriage, or they married somebody who meets all of their qualifications and stuff, that is the exception. The exceptions don't make the rule. I am not basing my life off of unicorn moments. I don't base this YouTube channel off of, oh, I just want my video to go viral. No, I base it off of what is statistically most likely to happen. What happens the most consistently? What results can I rely on the most? It is most common for marriages to turn out badly. It's most common for you having kids with this guy to turn out badly. It's more common for these guys to look at pornography than to not look at it. It's more common for men to cheat on you when you age or when you are your most vulnerable. So when you're pregnant, when you're aged, when you gain weight, or when you have chronic illnesses, that's more common than not. And for the people who feel like I'm being negative or like I'm trying to be biased, this content is actually not even meant to be hateful towards men. It is meant to help you to see men for what they are, and then you get to make a more informed decision on how to deal with them, as opposed to basing your whole entire future on a man who does not exist, or trying to project a man onto the man you're currently with when that's not him. But I've noticed that a lot of people who are obsessed with marriage, or they kind of over promote marriage, a lot of times these women, what they really like is the spotlight. And so this is why a lot of women experience that post-marriage depression or post-wedding blues, because that spotlight that was on you for that little bit of time is now gone. All of the people asking questions and saying, oh, your ring is so pretty and stuff, that spotlight is off of you. So I've noticed that what a lot of women really desired was the spotlight. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I do not shame women for having different desires on this channel. It's fine if you want the spotlight, but I just feel like dragging a whole other person into that, that doesn't have to be that's not the easiest way to do it. You can get a sense of having the spotlight in so many other ways. You can create some artwork and maybe your art becomes like really popular on Etsy, or maybe you start some sort of business, maybe you join some sort of entertainment group or the entertainment industry in general. There are so many other ways that you can receive a spotlight and feel special without having a romantic relationship, because I used to associate the feeling of being the most special and the feeling of having the most spotlight with having a man give it to me. And it's like, why does a man have to give me the spotlight in order for me to feel like a star? Why can't I find other ways to make myself feel like a star and to put the spotlight on myself as opposed to giving the man a power to put that over me or not? And I've also heard married people say, well, marriage doesn't fulfill you. You have to find fulfillment outside of the marriage. And it's like, okay, you just confirmed another reason why I shouldn't do it then. So if it's going to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, if it's normal for me to experience depression within it, if I have to pay 50-50 of his bills and I have to deal with him subscribing to OnlyFans, so I'm basically paying for part of the OnlyFans bill, and you're now telling me that it's also going to be unfulfilling, then why would I volunteer the next 80 years of my life doing that? But I've noticed that a lot of times the people who experience kind of this post-wedding depression or post-marriage depression, they have realized that the marriage itself is actually not fulfilling. It didn't fulfill them like they thought it would. And this is also why we see a lot of men cheating as well, a lot of married men cheating and a lot of married men looking for sexual excitement via OnlyFans, because they thought that getting married would fulfill them sexually. They thought that getting married to this woman would fulfill all of his emotional needs, all of his sexual needs, all of his domestic needs, his financial needs, so they're kind of hoping that the wife giving up and sacrificing for him will fulfill him. And I've noticed that oftentimes that might work for a little while for the man, but when he gets older and stuff and realizes that he still is nothing in society as a whole, then oftentimes these are the men who go out and try to seek those cheap thrills. They seek it out via gambling addictions. They seek it out via addictions to substances or things like cigarettes or whatever. Like they start overspending their money. They suddenly want to buy a Rolls Royce, even though you guys can't afford it. He wants to spend his money on like cars and all of these flashy items. So I don't want to spend my life dealing with that. And Decentering Men has really helped me to see things more clearly. And it also helps me to accept men for who they are, as opposed to expecting men to be something that they're not. And I'm not saying that a man can't prove me wrong, but I'm saying that I understand statistics and I understand the numbers. And also, all I have to do is look around me and observe, even observing my own brothers, my own father, my uncles, the men in my life in general, maybe my male coworkers and teachers. Even if I just took a look around me, that was helping me to realize the nature of a lot of guys. And it doesn't have to be like a really bad thing. I actually don't feel any anger towards men or anything like that. In fact, it helped me to be more carefree around men, because I no longer believe that men are someone that I need to impress, because I've taken them off the pedestal. I feel like I'm probably already more impressive than you in terms of personality traits, having a multifaceted character, having a multi-dimensional personality. So I no longer feel the need to impress guys. That was another benefit of decentering them. Another insecurity that was solved when I decentered men was I realized that I would never have to worry about feeling like I'm in last place in my own life ever again. So that was something that was very powerful and very freeing, because in the past, when I was married or when I was like with different boyfriends and stuff like that, there were moments in those relationships where I genuinely felt like I was coming last. So it's like, oh, what do you want to eat for lunch? It could be something simple like, what do you want to eat for lunch? Okay, well, I want to eat a salad, but he doesn't like healthy food. So he's going to take us to a steakhouse or a place with unhealthy foods. So now I'm starting to fall off on my weight loss goals, or I'm starting to fall off on my financial goals by going 50-50. I'm starting to fall off on my self-esteem goals by allowing him to look at other women and disrespect me and cause me to feel inadequate, and then allowing him to stay in my presence. But ever since I have decentered them, I no longer have that fear of coming in last place in my life, because even if I look at my own mother, my own grandmother, and all of the women in my family, all of these amazing women that I used to look up to, I love my family with all of my heart, But one thing that I did not want to repeat was I did not want to be a martyr in my own life. I did not want to sacrifice my own life for others. I'm not Jesus. I'm not here to sacrifice my life for others. No, I didn't want to do that. And so the Decentering Men journey has really helped me to stop self-sacrificing 24/7 and to finally be able to take a part of my power back. I know that there are other areas where you have to self-sacrifice, like you have to obey the laws, you have to pay your bills, you have to like pay your taxes, and maybe you work a job, so you have to follow the rules there. So the Decentering Men journey for me is just me taking back at least one piece of my own power. It's me taking back the power over my own womb, the power over my sexuality, my body, and who I give my body to. And it's taking back power over my emotions, who I give my loyalty to, who I give my thoughts to. Because that's another thing. I am not kidding. I genuinely did not realize how smart I was until I decentered men. Because my mind was, even though I always felt like I was smart, my mind was still so consumed with like, oh, what does this guy think about me? Oh, I wonder if he's thinking about me right now. Oh, he looks so hot when we were at work today. Oh my God, I wonder if he's going to text me tonight. So I was thinking all of these thoughts, and my thoughts in my own mind lacked depth. And ever since I decentered men, my thoughts are no longer consumed with silly things like that. Now I'm able to think about larger issues like, hey, how can I make MLS women feel more powerful in society? How can I start my own business? How can I stop working a 9-to-5 job and create my own media company and create my own social media thing for myself? How can I eat healthier? I want to learn more about nutrition. I want to make sure I'm getting the proper proteins and fibers and amino acids and stuff like that. So my actual thought life is not only much more peaceful and less anxious, but it has so much more depth, and it has helped me to actually appreciate myself more. And it has also helped me to share my own thoughts and feelings with the world. Because this video, none of my Decentering Men videos would even exist if I was still male-centered. In fact, I wouldn't even be a full-time content creator if I was still male-centered. I would still be just working my job. Nobody would have ever heard of this channel, and all of these thousands of people that I've helped because of Decentering Men, that would have never existed. So Decentering Men was one of the most powerful things that I could have done for myself, because it helped me to stop stalling my life in hopes of gaining a man. Because another thing that I used to think was, oh, I'm not going to buy a house yet because, one day when I get married, we can just buy a house together, or that man can buy me a house. But now I no longer have that mindset. I'm not waiting around for some unicorn man to come and purchase me a house. I am going to save up my own money, instead of waiting to go on all of these trips and stuff too. That was something else that I used to feel kind of insecure about. I used to think like, oh, I can't really travel. I can't really see the city as much. I can't go out as much because nobody's dating me, or I don't have a boyfriend right now, or me and my boyfriend are fighting. But no, Decentering Men really helped me to take back my power, and it helped me to take responsibility and take ownership over my own experiences in life. So my life experiences have also become so much better, because instead of arguing 104 times per year, now I get to go hiking 104 times per year. Now I get to meal prep or cook a healthy meal 104 times per year. Now I get to go out and hang out by the ocean 104 times per year by myself instead of worrying about arguing. Or I get to go to a support group or go hang out with my friends 104 times per year. Another thing that Decentering Men helped me with was, this is really random, but it actually turned me from being anti-plastic surgery to being pro-plastic surgery and pro-body modification. So in the past, I've told you guys the story a bunch of times about how I used to feel like the only way to be beautiful was if you're natural, but then that caused me to have an insecurity about aging, because I know that when you age, like your boobs begin to sag, your hips and butt will sag down, your face will start sagging, your hair will turn gray. So I didn't have any problems with my natural self as a young person, but I did have an insecurity like, oh wow, one day when I turn like 50 or 60 years old, I'm going to just look like a grandma, and there will be nothing I can do about it because I can't just go get a new face. I can't just go get surgery. But ever since Decentering Men, now I have given myself the freedom to get whatever surgeries or body enhancements I want. I can wear wigs, I can wear makeup, I can dye my hair as much as I want because I don't have to worry about impressing a guy with my natural beauty anymore. So now I no longer fear aging. I no longer fear losing my beauty in the eyes of men because I know that I can always maintain my beauty by myself. And I don't have to worry about some guy. I don't care about a guy saying, well, you're fake, or like, you're just trying to have pretty privilege. Because you guys know that decentering men, in my opinion, it comes on kind of a spectrum. So there are different ways to do it. So for me, I still do enjoy the pretty privilege. Like I enjoy receiving a compliment, or if a guy buys me a free coffee, that's no problem. What I won't do though is center my whole life around the guy who buys me a coffee. He can buy me a coffee and then I walk out and then I never see him again. That's great. But me revolving my whole life around it, no. So, but ever since decentering men altogether, my views on my own body have become a lot more healthy. I am able to love myself whether I look pretty that day, whether I look bad that day. I'm able to work on myself or look exactly how I want without a man telling me, oh no, you don't need to get a boob job, in your 50s, or you don't need to get this, you don't need to get a facelift. Don't get that because that's fake. I don't have to worry about a guy shaming me for having things about myself that are fake. I can be as fake as I want to be when I get older. I can get new boobs if I want to. I can get a tummy tuck if I ever get fat, and I don't have any more shame around that. I've noticed that when I was more male centered, men used to have more of a say on my body. They used to be able to kind of put me down if a man calls me out, like, oh, you're wearing fake eyelashes. That would kind of make me feel down a little bit because I'd be like, oh, wow, he's kind of like, he's humbling me basically. But now that I've decentered men, they can no longer humble me. So that's right. I will be delusional as fuck. I'll be as delulu as I want to be. I will certainly be walking around when I'm older. When I'm in my 50s and 60s, I will still be wearing mini skirts. I will still be wearing my little cute shorts. I will still be wearing crop tops and whatever I want to wear because it's my body. I don't care about a man shaming me anymore. No man can humble me anymore because I am not centered around them anymore. I don't center my self-esteem and my view of my own beauty around the male gaze. And also, the male gaze, they like a different thing every day. So they'll say, oh, I only want someone natural. Then they'll cheat on you with somebody who has weave and lashes. Then they'll jack off to somebody on the side who has weave and lashes. So men's beauty standards change every single day anyway. So I just decided that I get to have my own internalized beauty standard and I can change my beauty standard for myself at any given time. So even though right now I have not had a facelift, if I'm 65 years old and I decide that I want to get a facelift, I can. Or if I decide I don't want to, I don't have to. So that was another thing that was very freeing and very powerful for me when it came to my decentering men journey. And by the way, when it comes to this journey, I am not perfect. I definitely don't feel like I have just completely overcome everything about patriarchy. No, I am still a regular person, just like all of you guys watching. I am still navigating through society every single day. But the thing is, with me, with decentering men, I am no longer submitted to patriarchy. I just know how to either benefit from it or opt out of it altogether. So for me, by opting out of birthing a man's children, I don't have to ever worry about, oh, well, daddy said I have to do this, or I don't have to worry about my children being emotionally attached to a man that is potentially toxic. So I've learned that decentering men has really helped me to, like I said, it helped me to either combat patriarchy or to be able to benefit from it without remorse. But what do you ladies think? How has decentering men helped you? What insecurities did it cure for you? Did it stop you from feeling afraid of being cheated on? Did it help you to feel like you were worthy again as opposed to constantly being disappointed and not feeling good enough? Because that's what it did for me. I used to jump through so many hoops and try to change all these different parts of myself based on what men wanted. And every single time, it never changed the man's character. My beauty did not make a man more virtuous. My soft spoken voice or my sweet feminine voice, it didn't make a guy fall more in love with me to the point where now he's just this perfect man. So once I realized that there's nothing I can do to change a man, that became so freeing. And it also helped me to be able to cut off men so much more easily because I'm like, I can't change him anyway, so I don't have to waste my time anymore. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.